Hello, this is Joanne Victoria with another edition of the Sanity Project podcast, the place for IT professionals whose work-life balance plan has imploded. We are here to provide solutions that will help the IT pro live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Our guest today is Mark Susnow. Mark is a speaker, thought leader, life coach, and strategist known for his unique ability to inspire others to believe in themselves. His enthusiastic and inspiring presentations on change, leadership, and collaboration have received acclaim from thousands. Mark has led an interesting life involving multiple transitions. As a former trial attorney for 30 years, Mark was covered by the New York Times, Rolling Stone magazine, Boston Globe, and the San Francisco Chronicle. As a musician, Mark often wondered what life would be like if he wasn't an attorney. In the year 2000, inspired by the new millennium, he decided to find out. Since then, he has devoted his skills to helping organizations and individuals develop the strategies and tools necessary to navigate the challenging climate of today's changing world. Mark is the author of Discover the Leader Within and the soon-to-be-released The Soul of Uncertainty, a Fable for Our Times. He is also the author of Dancing on the River, Navigating Life's Changes. Mark is the host of the Inspire Possibilities show on BBS Radio. You can check out Mark's website at inspirepossibility.com and welcome Mark Susnow.
Well, thanks for the great introduction.
You are more than welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be your guest and to kind of see where this goes.
Good.
I'm very curious, and I'm sure that we're going to find some things that are kind of common ground.
I'm sure we will. How do you, and if you work with employees and workers, how do you inspire possibility in the employee?
I think that's the core question with everybody. I think you have to really learn how to love yourself, to kind of appreciate yourself, because I think that most people are really hard on themselves. I remember years ago I did a workshop when I was still a lawyer, and we had to give a performance. And at the end of the performance, we had to critique our own performance, and then the group critiqued it. And everybody's critique of their performance was much harsher than the group's critique. And the instructor said if you had to hire yourself, you'd never get a job. And that stuck with me, and it's true, is that we're brutal with ourselves. We would never talk, we don't talk to friends like we talk to ourselves. So it's a matter of really learning to have that self-love and to really appreciate our goodness, because we have that voice of judgment, that VOJ that is constantly, is like a drum beating louder and louder that drives us nuts, and we all want to turn it off, no matter what we're doing. You know, we're thinking, "Well, I didn't do that very well. Could have done that better. Why did I say that?" And there are versions of that, you know, that we're not good enough. And so it's a matter of cultivating that other type of energy. Because when we're feeling good about ourselves, we're easier to get along with. We're more confident, and I think that's kind of what I do, is help people find themselves on a deep level.
One of the things that I've heard through, let's just say the last 10 years, is the phrase, one has to love themselves. And my experience has shown me that many people do not know what love truly is, especially when it comes to oneself. When we're dealing with a relationship, a primary relationship, love can be defined depending upon how the couple communicates with each other. But when we're talking about self-love, I think one of the things you said was something about our self-judgment.
Yes.
Would you expand on that?
Yes, thank you. We're critical. What I mean by self-judgment is we're really critical of ourselves. And usually when people are critical, when you notice other people in your life, you think, wow, they're really critical, it's because they're critical of themselves. And that's really where it starts. If you're critical of yourself, you're going to be critical of other people. What you don't like in yourself, you're not going to like in other people.
Yeah, I noticed that in many of the workshops that I either attended or facilitated, that usually the people who were similar were rejecting. One thing I did, and it was in the room where find somebody that you don't like, and go talk to them. And well, of course, there's all the drama of why should I talk to them, blah blah blah, and the mind goes crazy. And then when you speak with them, you find out that you have a lot in common.
I know. It's amazing, huh?
Well, I was amazed the first time I experienced it myself, and then, of course, I used that tool furthering, in my own workshops and seminars that I presented in California. We can, of course, guess from a macro view that the critical voice comes from childhood. But how does it continue to thread through an adult's life?
Well, it does come from childhood, and a lot of times we're not even aware of it. So what happens is we're not aware of it. We just continue that pattern that we had as a kid, that we probably got from somebody else, usually our parents, and they got it from their parents. So it's this pattern that we've had, and it's just ingrained in us, and we relate to the world that way. So if you have a childhood where you have abusive parents, you go in the world and you're going to, believe it or not, attract abusive people in your life. And you have to, develop a way of becoming more aware and say, wow, I'm starting to notice this. And that's kind of what I do with people, is start to, when I coach them, is I help them make themselves more aware of how they attract these people in their lives. And I think the other thing I do is give people feedback as to how I see people. Because it's amazing when I see somebody and then I work with them, again, this idea, their impression of themselves is so much harsher than what I noticed when I first noticed them. And I remind them, I say, let me tell you my first impression of when I saw you. And usually, again, it's really making people more aware of their tendencies, because if you can't correct your tendencies if you're not aware of them. And so we talk about it, and people start to notice in their lives, wow, you know what? I do this all the time. I got to change this.
Well, I notice also in the IT world, information technology, for those of you who are listening and are not quite familiar with the term IT, is that in most companies, IT or not, everybody reverts to high school. And they start acting like a teenager in their communications with each other, in their actions. And do you see that at all in the world when you're dealing with people?
Well, I haven't. When you said revert to high school, I didn't really think of it, and I'm still trying to process that. Do I see people reverting to high school? I'm not sure exactly.
Well, for example, I see some executives acting as bullies, and that's the common term today. And I'm going to be labeling here for a minute because that's a way for me to make a distinction. But executives seem to handle themselves like bullies, and they don't trust the people that they employ or that are employed by the multi-billion-dollar corporation to provide services to the execs. The execs are the ones that are in charge. And then within the context of the teams that may be working on a product, there is some adult behavior, but most of it is high school behavior. Men act like boys and women act like girls. Or actually, more women act like women, but men seem to act a lot like boys, where they have an old boys club or a young boys club, and there's cliques. Do you experience that at all, or do you understand what I'm talking about?
No, I don't, because I don't experience that. It just seems like an overgeneralization.
Okay.
In terms of what I deal a lot with professionals, and that's not really their challenge.
Okay.
A lot of their challenge is around work-life balance and how to be successful in a career, and this idea of bullying, I think it also comes back to what some people perceive as bullying is just people are bad communicators. They don't know how. It's the old style of leadership.
Yes.
Right. Of rather than demand rather than inspire.
Yes. Talk to me a bit more about inspiration.
I think they're just, inspiration is when we're inspired to do something. It's something that we feel called to do. It's not because we have to do it, but it's because we're called to do it. And all of us have that voice inside. What's interesting is that, my radio show, the Inspire Possibility Show, I interviewed the senior editor of the Joseph Campbell Foundation. And I didn't know this, but Joseph Campbell is known for the phrase, follow your bliss. But what happened was, in the 80s, a lot of people took that phrase and then they talked about follow your bliss and the money will come. And movies like The Secret kind of propagated that belief system, and he got concerned about it because it wasn't his intent. And so he started saying, which people don't know about, and I didn't know about until I heard this recently, is he started saying, follow your blister. And what he meant was, do that thing that you cannot do. Do that thing that calls you, that fulfills you, that makes you whole. And then if you do that, then you're inspired, because you've answered the call inside.
That's profound and correct. It works. Yeah. It works, because if you do follow the blister, you will be answering your call. I've experienced it myself, also with several of my current and former clients, and it's a surprise to them.
Yeah.
It's a surprise to anybody who goes after something without knowing they're going after it.
Yeah. So so what happens a lot with people in the workplace is a lot of jobs are demanding, but people don't know how to have clear boundaries. And what they do is they're always saying yes to somebody else, to their career or their responsibilities. And when they do that, they're saying no to themselves. And I think you have to learn to have boundaries, so you have this downtime to reflect, to go inward, and then you get recharged. What's interesting is that, in the professional sports world, athletes have a down season where they recharge. They learn new things. But for example, right now it's football season. And football season starts in September, the regular season, and then maybe in July they start going to their team's training camp. And the season goes for most teams until January. A few teams go a little further. But it's basically a 5 or 6 month season. And the rest of the time they can do whatever they want. They can let their body recharge. They can let their body rejuvenate. But in the corporate world, or the work world, or whatever we want to call it, people don't take a downtime. They're going all the time, 24/7. And with modern technology, because I've worked, like you have, with people in the technology world, they're on the clock all the time. And they have their phones with them, and they answer. They could be at a basketball game or a sporting event. All of a sudden they enter a text, and they don't take days off. And I encourage people to take days off so you can get recharged. Take time off, or at 7 o'clock, put your phone down. You don't have to take your phone into your bedroom. I mean, it's amazing the number of people that take their phone into the bedroom.
At least their phone.
Yeah. And especially, too, now I've been a little bit guilty of this. I've been starting to read books on my iPad. And I take my iPad upstairs to read a book. But then what happens, I start looking at other stuff, So some nights I go, okay, this is not going upstairs. You're not going upstairs.
Yeah, I totally understand. I don't spend too much time on my phone for the internet. I try not to. And I try not to turn on my computer right away first thing in the morning, because I do shut it down at a certain time. Mm-hmm. Yesterday was one of those days where I was pushed to the edge and it shut down earlier than normal. But I do understand people just don't give up from that, especially in the IT world, from just being on all the time, and it's not good for them. Yes. I was looking here at your current book, or the one that's going to be published in late January, and I'd really like you to talk to me about it. The soul of uncertainty. What is it about?
This idea of we're again back to this idea of we're not good enough. And I think when we feel we're not good enough, we're just tossed around. Starting when we're little kids, like, how are we going to survive? Am I going out for a team or trying out for a play? We're always competing against other people, and there's this little voice inside us about, I'm not good enough. Will I have enough? Will people love me? And these questions, which there's really no answer to, they're with us our whole lives. And so it's learning to make peace with this uncertainty, this peace that, there are a lot of loose ends. Originally, I was going to call the book Learning to Love Loose Ends and Uncertainty. That was the original working title. Mm-hmm. And then my consultant suggested, he said, your book's more of a fable, and that's just too much self-help. So I changed it to The Soul of Uncertainty, which I love.
I do too.
But in a way, it's learning to love, it's learning to make peace with the unknown, and learning to see the unknown as your friend, because we don't know what's going to happen today, and it's learning to be more comfortable with whatever happens, and whatever that is, and to see our lives as, I always come back to this phrase of seeing our lives as an exciting journey of discovery.
Yeah, you talk a journey of discovery, I say adventure, and I think they're similar, because it's
they are, and I use adventure too.
Okay, but it's an adventure into the unknown. It's like when people ask, Joanne, why are you doing that? And I said it's another adventure for me, and I can't stop adventuring. Yeah. And it's okay. So what you're talking about, I'm listening to the words that you're saying about the soul of uncertainty and people's minds going off. And then when I'm aligning that with your telling people that they have to stop at certain times of the day, they have to stop working, they have to stop delving into their work or distracting themselves with their work, because what I'm getting is they are obviously avoiding paying attention to their own lives.
Yeah, I mean they are. Well, they're afraid they need to be busy all the time because they don't want to, allow that void, that silence of when they have nothing going on, just to be with themselves.
Yes, I love that silence myself. Yeah. It's the only rest, that's the true rest of my mind that I get, because my mind gives up control to dreams when I'm sleeping, so that's sort of touched there. But how would you suggest that anybody listening to this show right now would, if they're, let's just say we've got an example of a resistant person who's always on the internet one way or another during the day because it's part of their work, and they go home and maybe they have dinner because it's late and they're tired, and depending upon who cooks or if they have takeout or whatever, there comes a time when they could stop. What suggestion do you have for people who don't know how to stop and are willing to practice stopping?
Well, what I suggest is everybody I work with and talks I give is I've developed what I call a morning program, and it used to be a meditation, but what I do now is I meditate in the morning, and then I focus what I'm grateful for, and then I ask myself a question, and which is I wonder what the highlight of my day is going to be. And I start, briefly scanning. I go, I start thinking what I have scheduled that I can think of. And then I think, maybe it's something that I'm not even aware of right now. It's going to be my highlight. But it's taken that time to start your day in silence. And a lot of people are not good at that, just what you were saying. So I say, take a timer and start with 5 minutes. If you've never done this before, set your timer, do it for 5 minutes, and leave your phone outside the area so that you don't hear it. Now, a lot of people, what they do is they kind of slide because they say, well, I'll set the timer on my phone, for the 5 minutes. That's kind of what, Or people go, I'm not a morning person. And so I go, well, you do get up, though, don't you, at some time? They go, yeah. I said, well, when you get up, do it. I don't care if it's at 2 in the afternoon, No, I work all night. Well, when you start your day, whenever it is, because I think there's a direct correlation with how you start your day and how your day goes. If you start your day in a hurry, you're going to be in a hurry all day long. If you start your day with calmness, when you have challenges come up, you're going to be better able to handle them.
So it's a sense also of training your brain and your body to expect to take the 5 minutes, at least the minimum 5 minutes every morning or whatever time you get up. Is that a valid statement? Okay. Because I think that some people are just trained to jump out of bed, and usually for me that means that there's an emergency because I don't jump. And but for many people, they do. They jump out of bed.
I got an expression.
Good.
Right, you're saying jump through hoops, kind of like I go, no hoops, no more.
There you go.
No hoops, no more.
And that's perfect. And it's a matter of, I think, being consistent, because consistency is the key to so many things. So how many days would you say that people should try? I hate to use that word, but practice this 5 minutes a day.
Well, I think every day, because that's why I say, instead of saying, well, I'm going to do it 20 minutes, start off with 5, but do it rather than do it 20 minutes 3 or 4 times a week or twice a week, and say, well, I'm a meditator, I do it twice a week. Do it every day, but just for 5 minutes, and that's your that is your minimum. But do it every day. I'd rather have someone do it every day, so they have that regularity, rather than taking on something that then they're going to feel, well, I don't do it very well. And the thing is, people, when they first get into things like meditation, they say, well, I've tried it, but I don't do it very well. And I said, what do you mean? They said, well, my mind goes all over the place. And I said, well, they call it a meditation practice for a reason. It's a practice. And you practice. And I've been meditating for over 40 years now. And my mind still scatters at times, and I can't get settled. Now, usually I do quickly, but sometimes I don't. But I don't judge it. I go, well, that's the way it is. It's not good or bad. It's just the way it is. And people sometimes, they need to say, oh, this is good. This isn't good. This is good. This isn't good. And I still do that.
Well, it's continuing with the judgment of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that, I don't know how many decades on this planet it takes for that to at least slow down, so it's not so volatile and people stop blaming themselves. But I find that if people practice the 5 minutes a day long enough and then they stop because for some reason they're distracted, that they will miss it.
Yeah.
They will miss it.
Well, that's the idea.
Yes, that's the idea. It's another habit or a pattern to replace the one that doesn't work. And, the world abhors a vacuum, so they need a good habit to replace the negative habit that they've been living with and expressing for how many years, we're not sure. Okay, these are good things. So if people want to know about you, know more about you, they should go to your website link, which is inspirepossibility.com, INSPIREPOSSIBILITY.com. And they can email you at mark@inspirepossibility.com, and they can find your books on your website, correct?
On my website, yes, Oracle on Amazon.
And
Dancing
then,
on the River is on Amazon, and The Soul of Uncertainty. And also, if people want to I have a free ebook called Live in Balance. And if they go to my website and sign up for my newsletter, Letters on Life, which comes once a month, they'll get as a gift, as a welcoming offer. They'll get 2 ebooks. They'll get Live in Balance, and they'll also get Stepping Stones to Greater Personal Freedom.
Well, our listeners can't do any better than that. Go to inspirepossibility.com. Sign up for Mark Susnow's newsletter called Letters on Life. You will get a post once a month, but you will also get 2 ebooks. The first is Live in Balance. The second is Stepping Stones to Greater Personal Freedom. Well, Mark, this has been a joy. I've enjoyed it, and I know our listeners will as well, or have already, because if they've reached this point, they've gotten all your great information. Do you have anything more that you would like to share with our audience?
I think you covered it.
Okay, and so have you.
You did great. Thank you very much for inviting me to be your guest.
I'm glad you were here, and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com and continue the conversation on my podcast page. And get a free copy of my book, The True Self Handbook, a guide to transform your life. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.